to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing today? Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back. Even though you guys missed the live party, you guys know that is the best part of the party. So make sure every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you are right here. And sometimes I stream whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button and you will never miss another party ever again. Also, just want to give a thank you to the sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. You know it well. They've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. We got some early gang in the building. Divine and Rod, what is going on? And a new name here. Hey, we got God Key said Amala is a rational thinker, a young lady with a good head on her shoulders. Well, I completely agree with you, God Key, and thank you so much for hanging out tonight. And that is exactly what we are going to be talking about. So if you are not familiar with Miss Amala here, not yet. If you're not familiar, she does work with PragerU. And I know you guys are familiar with Jubilee's Middle Ground. Before you know me, I like that context. So we got a short video of Amala from PragerU, and then we'll get into the main event. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I really do appreciate it. If you could hit that like button on your way in, that would be amazing. And you guys know how StreamYard can suck sometimes. So if the sound is not good, please do let me know. Let's dive right in.
I'm 20 years old. I was born in Florida, and
so this is from about a year ago. So I think she's like 21 now.
I'm a social media influencer and Prager Force member. So my father was a Nigerian immigrant. He moved to America. He met my mother. They fell in love and got married, and they had 3 children, me being the middle child. And he was in my life up until I was 6 years old, and then my parents got divorced. So I have very little memories of him as a child, and as they were divorced, I didn't see him very often, maybe every year or so. And now he bears very little influence in my life, which I know is common for most people in the Black community, unfortunately. So I sort of fall into that statistic, if you will. So my mom is a very strong-willed woman, a very opinionated woman. She happens to work for the left. She is a fundraiser, so she gets all the funding for the organization that she works for. As a child, my mom's beliefs were ingrained in me.
Yeah, so as God Key is saying here, I'm glad you're familiar with her. Started out her life as an extreme SJW activist through the influence of her mother, but she became increasingly unhappy with that lifestyle. And exactly right. Let's hear her tell more.
Taught me leftist ideology and what she believed from a very young age, and I was always well aware of where she fell on the line and expected to believe the same. Not having my father in my life did have an impact on me, but I found father figures elsewhere. And 2 people who had a major influence on me were my grandparents. And they are this strong, beautiful, conservative couple that has been married for years and years. And they taught me how to be a lady. They taught me how to carry myself and be mature. And I find myself very lucky, actually, that even though my family does not agree with the values that I am putting out to the world, that
I said, shit, me too. I don't think I showed you guys the email, but I talked about the email that my mom sent me. Very Christian lady, very unhappy with TheIndianJesus as my name. So I hear you, girl.
My family accepts what I do and that they are proud of what I do, even though they disagree. When I was 17 and I graduated high school, I took up a job as a youth organizer at my mother's organization. And as I was working there, I remember in particular walking into the office and hearing these conversations, specifically in regards to white people.
He was talking about.
And it was blatantly racist. There is no way around it. There was no beating around the bush. They hated white people. And I sat down with the VP of the organization and I told him I was concerned. I'm half white. I grew up with my white family. Am I supposed to hate that half of myself? Am I supposed to hate my family? He essentially told me, you have to understand that people are angry and they're rightfully angry and they're going to say these things and maybe they don't fully mean it, but you have to sit down and you have to take it and you should be angry too. So that was a light bulb moment for me. And I went.
And that, I think, as that ideology started to boil over and become more mainstream, I guess, because it was always there. The idea that certain people in different groups felt like America treated them a certain way, and so now they hate America, even though they're in America experiencing the best civilization in the history of civilization. That's a red pill moment for a lot of people. It's just like, no, I don't hate America. No, I don't hate people just because of the color of their skin.
Went out to seek answers on my own since nobody wanted to answer them. I went online and I found an interview in particular of Thomas Sowell. And something that resonated with me is that he was a Marxist for most of his young life, just as I was. And that shared experience was a beautiful revelation to see. And now he is this beautiful mind who has intellect beyond what I will ever be capable of. So he is a major inspiration for me and a big part of why I'm a conservative today. So when I think about the Black community in America and how we are taught to be victims, it is devastating for me. And what happens is
So again, this is just a short video just to give those of you who are not familiar with Amala just a little bit of context, and then we're diving right into Jubilee.
You are raised in a society in which really nobody is treating you differently, but you have the mindset that they are. And not only does it hold you back from creating your own success, but it holds you back from taking accountability, and you no longer are responsible for your actions because you have somebody to blame.
You're no longer responsible for your actions because you have somebody to blame. Does that not perfectly encapsulate the leftist ideology? That victimization is currency, and it's sad. It's terrible. So I'm glad that at least there are people like Amala realizing that yes, you may be able to get social currency that way, but you don't want to live in a society that way, and you don't want to think of yourself that way.
And people perpetuate that, and they tell you that's okay, and they say, yes, you are a victim, and then you go out with that mindset, and when success doesn't happen for you, you blame it on other people. And ultimately, I think that is the main problem with that narrative, is that there's no accountability in the Black community anymore, and people get very, very angry when you say things like that, because they want their race to be seen. They think it's such a pivotal part of who they are as a person, and it's overtaking character, it's overtaking morals and values, it's overtaking where you even land politically.
And I would say far beyond just race. This is identitarianism as a whole. That whatever immutable characteristic you have, politically now becomes the forefront of what your ideology is, which doesn't make sense.
Your race is seen as this sort of pivotal structure to who you are, when that should not be the case. We are bringing back segregation in this country, and people will sell it to you as if we're doing it in a positive manner, but it is segregation nonetheless, and that is never positive. So that's another narrative that the American people are being sold, that we need to uplift Black people, and in doing that, we need to keep them in their separate categories, and we need to give them their success. And it perpetuates the very same racist narrative that they are trying to run away from, because if Black people can't do anything without your help, and without the help of white liberals or white leftists, what are you saying about the Black community? You're saying that they're not capable of doing things without you. You're taking away their character. You're taking away their success and putting it under your name. We are seeing this positive segregation in the Black-only college dorms. We're seeing it in affirmative action. We're seeing it in our streaming services like Netflix and Hulu, where we have Black-only categories. I went onto YouTube the other day and I got a big poster that said, let's uplift Black creators. And here's a list of Black creators on our platform.
I'm glad that this didn't happen. But it also would be kind of funny if I got some, like, because I don't watch, like, I don't know, Bollywood shit or whatever. But if just because somehow through Facebook and Twitter and all that, they knew that I was Indian, and just like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that with people that look like you. We don't know if you're actually going to like it, but they look like you.
Segregating virtually every single facet of our society, and we're doing it in this gradual process and teaching people that it's a positive aspect of our lives when it's not. The left is very, very supportive of anti-American values and anti-American speech, and they see it as taking back a country that has not served them, even though America has done wonders for everybody who lives here. I fear that if things continue on the same track that they're on right now, we are going to lose all sight of what America ever was or what America should be. And there are strong campaigns to strip America of its tradition and of its values. And a lot of it is what we are taught. When we go into school, we are taught that this country of freedom and liberty has all these transgressions that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to discuss. And really, we have a systemic issue that we really are not the free and tolerant country that we preach to people that we are. We are not the beacon on the hill that we try to get other people to perceive us as. And I think it is just a child that is born of misinformation and lies. I think that we can all find common ground in looking at the beautiful things that this country has to offer. We get to experience more freedom than anybody in the world. The fact that I can go out and have freedom of speech and say what I feel and what I think. It's also amazing in this country that we can come here and enjoy all these opportunities, create businesses, create our own world, create our own dream, and to know that you can go out and be whatever you want to be is a beautiful thing that should absolutely be celebrated on both sides.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Gaki says she has conservative values, but still combined with strong social values from a classical liberal. A good combination, in my humble opinion. I agree with you. She is somebody that I regularly listen to and frequently listen to her channel. Oh, very cool. So, yeah, I heard of her when she went on Timcast. I've obviously been aware of PragerU for quite a while. But her specifically, I just, I probably even watched videos or listened to her before without necessarily knowing much about her. So when she was on Timcast and I was able to listen to her speak, just this good combination, Godkey, that you're talking about, the conservative values, but the social values that come from a classical liberal. For those who are here all the time know that I call myself a 2015 liberal. I used to be, that straight down the line liberal, and just like all the things that all the left people talk about, it just wasn't a tenable situation anymore. And so, I guess you could call me a conservative. I've never voted for a conservative Republican, but I can see myself doing it coming up soon. So, the main reason I wanted to show that was because she is in this episode of Jubilee's Middle Ground: Trans Women versus Conservative Women. I bet you can imagine how that goes. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Step forward if you agree. The transgender movement is indoctrinating our youth.
So let's do this all as polls. So the trans movement is indoctrinating our youth. I'm just put yes or no, but agree or disagree. All right, let's see what they say. Oh, we got a comment here. Gaki says she is somebody I gladly listen to and frequently visit her channels on YouTube and other social media. Yeah, definitely. What is her channel? I think it's Unapologetics, or I had it. I don't remember her exact channel name, but we will get that before the end. If you know it, drop it down in there, Gaki. But yeah, conservative women versus trans women. Transgender movement is indoctrinating our youth. Yes or no? Do you agree?
We are seeing, especially on social media, on TikTok, you're seeing a lot of people in this community really just targeting children, and you're seeing drag shows, even in conservative states like Texas, and even just media, movies. Like, it seems like everything seems to be targeted at these kids. You have drag story hour for kids, and it's just really, I think, predatory in a way. And I'm not saying every trans person is doing this, but as a whole, there does seem to be a route that they're taking to get to the kids.
And that's a point that, unfortunately, we have to bring up every single time that we talk about this, because the trans activists will make it seem like, because you are saying you don't want sexuality in front of children, and drag is a form of that, and you don't want that in front of children, that means that you think all trans people are broomers with a G. And it's very obvious that is not the prevailing opinion. It's the sexuality aspect. So the same way we don't want a heteronormative strip show in the library or in our elementary school, this is no different. Hey, we got Frankie D. What is good? What is good? What is good? Says, "'Tis I, the man who brings nothing useful to the table." That is not true, my guy. You bring great comments, great thoughts, and views from my channel. Nothing else. Glad to see you, buddy. Glad to see you. We are watching Trans vs. Conservative Women. And the prompt is, the transgender movement is indoctrinating our youth. You want to vote on the poll there.
When you hear Blue's Clues playing in the next room, and then you hear the gay parade song, it's Blue's Clues. You're not expecting to be talking to the children about that. Yeah. It really makes you wonder, are they really coming for the children?
And I think we see in our population now, the rate of young children who are
Amala.
identifying as transgender, non-binary is skyrocketing. And I think there's something to be said for
Unapologetic. That's her show's name. So definitely go check out Amala, PragerU, and Unapologetic.
people who are truly experiencing gender
And Jubilee. Thank you, Jubilee.
dysphoria, which we recognize exists, and those who are experiencing what is now going to be called, or in the future going to be called, this social contagion gender dysphoria, where they're being exposed.
So this is where, let me get rid of this. And so specifically says the social contagion theory can be traced back to a 2018 paper published in the journal PLOS1. I don't know what that is, but the source from NBC News.
To it on social media or in school, or mom and dad are having a conversation about it with children, and children are now starting to develop gender confusion.
Or even babies, right? People who are being born, they don't.
That would have been good. Well, you know what? I don't know, because Blair is so well versed in this area. I feel like, because again, she's trans and conservative, so I don't know if she would fit that dichotomy. But because she's so well versed on these issues, then it would be awesome to see her school everybody. But as Jubilee, I think you need to have the sides represented at least to a reasonably equal degree. Otherwise, it's not really a middle ground, But that would be interesting.
I have to put the gender on the birth certificate, and they're saying you can choose whatever you want to be. Like, that's so dangerous. And even lying to them, saying like, oh, if we put you on hormone blockers at this age, it won't do anything to your puberty. It won't affect you long term.
I just want to point out that even though less than 20 people voted, I put up a poll on my community page saying, what is the worst addition to healthcare? Euthanasia for adults or puberty blockers for children? And 100% of people said puberty blockers.
And it's just a straight up lie. And there's like an entire Reddit thread dedicated to people who transitioned, talking about how much they hate their life now because they transitioned as a child and now they amputated off healthy body parts and are miserable.
All right. Can the disagree step forward?
The fact that the trans movement has got people shook has me so excited. The trans movement.
Why? Why? That's already an energy that I don't appreciate. I love that this got y'all fucked up. Why? Don't you want people to be understanding? Don't you want to be accepted? I thought that was the goal here. So let me let her go on.
Movement is not indoctrinating our youth. Our youth are understanding who they are at a younger age.
Don't usually do it this early, but are they there?
And for what I was hearing over here is a lot of what y'all were saying. I wonder would you say it to the parents, because we need to really look at.
Yes. Would I speak truth to somebody because they have children? Yes.
What the parents of trans youth really go through. Trans youth, instead of them enjoying their life, playing with their friends, they're up in legislation trying to fight for basic rights here. 1 in 5 transgender youth.
Such as? What basic rights do you not have as a trans person? Oh, okay.
Have tried to commit suicide. Why are we trying to police them?
So have I. When I was younger, do a lot of different issues. What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
But you're bringing it only to the parents. The question was indoctrination in general. Am I correct? And then,
But they're a part of that conversation. Someone said something about drag shows coming to schools or whatnot. The
Yup.
kids enjoyed it. The parents just had a problem with it. But that's their issue. There's only someone dressed in drag.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So because it was fine with the kids, then the parents should just be fine. We brought a bunch of heroin to school and all the kids loved it, but the parents for some reason were freaking out. Like, what are you saying? Frank D says, yo, Siri, this is like the embodiment of a first world problem. I mean, it's...
Reading a story.
Is
That could
drag
have been
not
anybody.
blackface for women? I see it as a caricature of womanhood.
But inherently
It's
sexual as
insulting.
well.
I have to agree.
Blackface for women. Blackface for women. What was the person, Dylan something or another, interviewed Biden for something, and there's a bunch of TikToks with this person in female clothing, like a blouse and heels, in the woods, and like, oh my god, a bee, ah! And like being very much a caricature. So that I heard that sentiment before. But to say that, like, I mean, what are we looking at? How is this not a caricature? And this is mild. This isn't somebody being wrong or mean. I think this person is just living their truth. But how did they come to the conclusion that that's what they want to look like? The same way that blackface came around.
With you guys, I do not like the drag queen social hours. I personally, as a trans person, didn't ever go to a drag show until I was about 4. I'm not for the sexualization of kids. Why are we
Let's
teaching? Why are we not letting
go!
kids be?
Which underlines what we said earlier. The problem is the sexualization of children. It is not the proximity to people who are of a different gender or a different gender identity or whatever, or denying people's existence. It has to do with sexualizing children and believing that that is wrong. How that became a controversial issue and a controversial point, I do not know. But let's back this up a sec.
Drag queen social hours. I personally.
So this it says, so this is just a Club Q memorial thing.
As a trans person, didn't ever go to a drag show until I was about 4. I'm not for the sexualization of kids. Why are we not letting kids be kids and bringing sex into their life so early?
I think it's predatory in general to talk about sex with children.
Yeah.
Regard straight sex, any kind of sex.
Who's teaching sex to 3rd grade children? I really want to know.
Have you looked at
So the same way that you want to talk about, well, I bet she's going to bring up, well, there's intersex people. Okay, there's also people who have one arm. Is it the proverbial knowledge that humans have one arm? Is it incorrect to say humans have 2 arms because there are people out there with one arm? No. What are you saying?
California curriculum for sex education? You need to.
I know that when I was in preschool, I got my first crush on a boy because to me at the time, he was in kindergarten, he looked like...
Okay, so I am not trying to be mean or anything negative. I just want to point out that Roxana decided to come to something that would be filmed and put on the internet. And she seems very soft-spoken, and I don't know if I'm very comfortable with this. And to me, that speaks to somebody who already has a lot of discomfort with how they portray themselves to the world, period. Whether it has to do with their gender, whether it has to do with anything else. That's already a red flag. So if you've already transitioned and you're still this way, then how much did it really help? Just ask it.
Prince Eric from
Little Mermaid.
Yeah, Little Mermaid. I don't think like fucking him ever crossed my mind when I was 4, but obviously like it would have been good to know that like it's okay, like if you have these feelings for someone of the same sex.
When we think of youth in general, they're having sex at a lot.
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the transgender movement. What does that have to do with being attracted to somebody of the same sex? Because what I was told is that sexual attraction and gender identity are very different. But Roxana here seems to be conflating the two. Or maybe I just don't understand.
Younger age, whether we like it or not. Let's just keep it 100% real.
You don't think it's because of that?
I do not think it's because of that. It starts at home with parents teaching their children. Because one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you teach your children or the world is going to teach your kids. That's the reality of it.
They are learning about it at younger ages from some adults or even their peers who learned about it from adults. That
Or the teachers, as we can see on Libs of TikTok.
is
And more importantly, recently with Project Veritas, catching the dude at the private school, the dean of the private school, talking about how he was bringing butt plugs into the grade school students and talking about the difference about how to insert them with lube versus spit. So again, the question is the transgender movement indoctrinating children? And I would say yes.
Definition indoctrination. As a mother and seeing what my children are going to have to be introduced to at such a young age, like I didn't even know what a gay person was till I was like 12. And so they're going to be having these really heavy adult conversations at a really young age just because of their exposure. And that is honestly just scary because I don't want to have those conversations. That's why I will be homeschooling my kids because I do believe it is my responsibility to protect them and shield them from the outside world, which is targeting children.
The trans community and the trans movement is really shaking the course of what people think gender identity is supposed to be.
So in one sentence, you're saying that you guys...
Exactly. Let's hear it again so that as Amala lays the smack down, we know exactly what she's saying. So go back, just make sure we got exactly what
targeting children.
Miss Black
community and the trans movement is really shaking the course of what people think gender identity is supposed to be.
So it's shaking the course of what people think gender identity is supposed to be. I guess that is referring to the binary. Okay, so it's shaking that up.
So in one sentence, you're saying that you guys are not responsible for the indoctrination that's currently happening with
Absolutely
children.
not.
And in the second sentence, you are saying we are shook by the fact that you are responsible for it.
No, you are shook at the fact that the trans movement has become what it is.
A movement that influences people all over the world, and particularly children. And we see it in the fact that the number of young people identifying as transgender, non-binary, is skyrocketing, which means that children are being exposed to these ideas. And it's certainly coming from institutions like the media, like Hollywood, like our public institutions and schools. So to say that that is not happening or to deny that that is the reality negates the numbers that we're seeing.
Wonderfully said, Amala. Very well done. Frankie says, I do not think it's the movement as a collective, but there are certainly extremists. But this leads into my theory of people trying to wipe out all identity to create a gray programmable blob race. I don't know what the second part. I definitely would have to sit on that. But I think the movement word is pivotal here because it's not about being LGBTQ. It's about being an activist. It's about the movement part of it. It's not about the transgender part of it. It's about the movement part of it. You can be an atheist without being part of the atheist movement. I mean, I'm not, but you could be. And I know a lot of people who are. So I think, Frankie, what you're saying harks back on the very first thing that we were saying is that all of the negativity that we're talking about is not a blanket thing that applies to somebody simply because they're trans or simply because they have a different gender identity. It has to do with the people who are specifically doing actions that are sexualizing children. Not you, Frankie, but if you, whoever out there, associates those actions with the LGBT community, well, that's something you got to deal with. That has nothing to do with any of what we're talking about.
Say is that the idea that there is a single transgender movement and ideology is disingenuous, and that at its core, being transgender is about separating sex from sex roles and gender roles that are compulsory.
Do you think that children should be able to transition medically?
No.
I think
there we go. I forget her name, but I like her. I like her because this is the type of person that gets caught in the crossfire. Just somebody just trying to live their life. They decide that transitioning is right for them, so they do it. They're not out here part of the movement. They're not out here trying to indoctrinate our children. They're not trying to teach it. They're just living their own life, living their own journey. I feel extremely bad for people like her because of the other trans woman that's on the panel that is wearing the Black Lives Matter shirt.
No. It just really depends on each individual situation. They should be able to make the best medical decision.
Again, the question was, should a child be able to transition?
For them.
So again, we can bring this back to heroin. If you teach children about heroin and what the feeling of heroin is like, and then you give them heroin, do you think that A, they are going to be able to determine or not determine, but take in the magnitude of what doing heroin on a regular basis means? And two, do you think that their decision of what they like or what they want in that moment is what you should give them just because they want it? Or as a parent, maybe don't give your kids heroin. Crazy, right?
I'm comfortable sharing bathrooms with the other side.
Yes, I feel comfortable. Safe, that might be a different question, but comfortable, yes, I feel comfortable.
What I think the bathroom issue opens up is an issue of predatory men taking advantage.
How do you feel comfortable without feeling safe? Because the person said comfortable, yes. I don't know about safe. It's like, oh, this is a really comfy chair that I'm sure I'm about to die in. That kind of seems like a semantic way to like, what do you mean? You like that needs exploration.
Of the opening, that now they could walk into a women's bathroom or a women's locker room, as we've seen happen in instances like here in Los Angeles at We Spa. And they go into a women's space, they expose themselves to the women, and then they say, well, I'm a trans woman and you've opened up this space for me.
But we cannot blame trans people for that. And
Nobody's blaming you.
No, right. Okay. Thank you, Amala. Who said we have to, that we specifically are talking about people who are not trans, who are taking advantage of the trans movement, who are taking advantage of the societal opinions on what it means to be trans, to go and attack women. And her first thing, well, we can't blame trans people. Okay, yeah, I agree. We should blame the individuals doing things wrong.
That's the problem right here. Because
is it though?
Yeah, when you walk into the bathroom, I'm not interested in knowing what you are, what you identify as.
So because you're not interested in none of that, nobody else would have any other reason to want to be in a space where women are vulnerable. Oh, okay, makes sense. I mean, where are the feminists? Where are the feminists? Where this biological man is saying that he can walk into, or excuse me, she can walk into your bathroom because, trust her, she doesn't care about what you're doing. Where are the feminists? This is right up your alley.
I'm trying to use the bathroom and leave out of there. What people have tried to say is that when trans women go in the bathroom, they're being predatory, and that is not the case.
No, that's not what people are saying. Again, it is saying people who are not trans. People who are not trans are pretending to be trans, which is very easy because you've made the bar very, very low. That is what is being said. So this is, again, another perfect example of the right knowing that the left is misinformed and the left thinking that the right is evil. She thinks that every conservative person just hates her, doesn't think she should exist, and wants her to be uncomfortable when she poops. You really think people care about what you feel like when you poop? It's not about you, honey, sweetie, baby.
That is something we do not blame on trans women. Although you were not saying that, when we talk about predatory behavior.
Even though you weren't saying that, I'm going to argue against it anyway.
When we talk about like the predatory cases, none of them have been trans women. So let's just.
Exactly. That is the point.
I just want to make sure. I know she's not. I know she's not strictly doing that, but because she said that, I think it's very important that I bring that out on the table and discuss that.
We have to have the conversation, and I'll open up the question. We know that if this legislation happens, if we move forward with this move, there are going to be men who take advantage of it. Now, I want to ask you.
Another 50-50 on the poll. If anybody wants to elaborate in the chat, I'd love to talk about that. What do you guys think with the bathroom issue? We got 50-50 there.
Is your comfort as far as going to the bathroom more important than the female women that will be victimized by this?
Who said female women will be victimized by this?
They will.
Who said female women would be victimized? Do you see the solipsism? I don't care about women. I care about me. Well, listen, anybody's going to get victimized. Been there, done that.
And they have.
No, you're only assuming, but the reality of it is, again, when people are going into the restroom, when people are only going into the restroom, they're only focused on doing one or two things, and that's using the restroom.
Yeah.
But you didn't answer the question. Is your comfort more important than the female people who could be victimized by this?
Okay, so let me help her answer the question. Which one do you think I'm going to get the kicked out of me in? It wasn't the women's.
See, this is at least, she's talking about herself, but at least that's a real legitimate point to be making. That, okay, I have to make this decision. I'm biologically a man. I present as a woman. So in that position, the question of which one am I going to is safer for me is relevant. It's not about what you want. It's about safety. And just like the women that we're talking about, their safety should be taken into account. You, as a human being, whether you're trans or whatever, that also comes into play. That's completely fair.
This restroom. The issue that you're bringing up, first of all, is already violating a whole bunch of laws. Okay, if somebody's exposing themselves in a bathroom, that's a whole different environment rather than just letting trans people in. In California, it's
so yeah. Let's do everything we can. Let's do everything we can to these things that we have laws against that people still do. Let's make it even easier. Let's make it even easier. Frank says, as an adult, I don't care who's in the bathroom with me. My kids don't go in alone. Honestly, I don't know what some of these people are doing in there if they know who's using the stalls next to them. Well, I'm sure you've seen a thing called a urinal, right? And if we're talking about the women's bathroom, then they don't just, it's not like the men's bathroom. You just go in, pop your dick out, piss, and dip out. They check their makeup and they do this, they do make sure you're all that whatever shit. That's why they spend twice as long. That's why the line to the women's bathroom is always 3 times the size of the men's room. But how old are your kids, Frankie? Because maybe you don't care. Maybe they don't go in now because they're too young. But what happens when they're 13 and they're out with their friends and they go to the concert of their favorite band for the first time? You're going to go in the bathroom with your 13-year-old son or daughter?
right now 100% legal for trans people to go use the bathroom of their choice. So I don't know what law you're talking about.
You're asking this question as if I would not stand up for cis women that were in the restroom, and that's not the case. Nice dodge there. But the reality of it is, one thing I
love how she dodged the question, and then she's like, nice dodge. Make it harder to not like you, please. You are making it way too easy not to like you, while simultaneously putting the things out there that you can use as the card. Oh, I'm black, trans, whatever. That's not why I don't like you, honey. But I'm sure you think it is. So Frankie's got 17, 12, and 4. So your 12-year-old, you go into the bathroom with your 12-year-old girl in public? I mean, well, I hope you're identifying as female at that point, because I don't know. I mean, hey, I don't have kids, so.
We're reducing a lot of these particular conversations to genitalia, and it's not about genitalia. Isn't
it though?
It's about safety.
Yeah, her concern is the possibility of predation, and that's still a probability. It doesn't matter if trans people are using the restroom or not. Sure. But what you're concerned about is that you're possibly that people feel more emboldened to put on women's clothes and go in the bathroom. But they're still violating the law all over the place if that's the purpose that they're going in for.
What if she's not there, Frankie? This is what I'm talking about. You've never gone out in public with your daughter without your wife?
Yeah, so I didn't step forward because, and I know in today's age this is going to sound very radical, and but I don't agree with the whole transgender ideology, and so for me it's encouraging something that is based in what I feel is delusion, and so I don't think that we should be encouraging that by allowing men into women's restrooms.
There you go.
I think
Nobody
that
has
if that's
anything
the
to
case,
say.
to some extent, all gender is delusion. If we're looking at historically anywhere from, midwives after the enclosure of the commons in the 1400s, having their whole trade affected, or Brewsters having their trade affected, and now we don't think of women as.
I'm gonna rewind her because I already zoned out. But yeah, Divining Rod is on point, and it's about the dynamic of physical power. I don't want anyone to be in harm's way, nor do I. But you also don't want to give a potential predator any advantage. And so, to their point where this is already happening without that advantage, why would you give them an advantage? We already see that this happens. We already see that this happens. So you want to make it easier? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Frankie says, yeah, but I usually wait right outside, and I have stepped in front of people when she was in there alone. Okay, but you're not addressing the point. So you don't think that there is any risk in a female vulnerable space, a public restroom, where you cannot go in. So let's say there's already a woman in there, and your daughter goes in. You're standing right outside. Okay, all's good, right? Then some person with a beard, burly as fuck, wearing work boots, work pants, and a blouse, walks. And you know what? Now that you think about it, as they're walking by you into the bathroom, you notice that that's the same person that's been following you and your daughter around the entire day. But you're cool, right? Because you're right outside, right? Nothing could happen. I mean, come on, man. Yeah. Well, exactly. There's risk in anything, and so what we want to do is minimize that risk the best we can. So while I absolutely empathize or sympathize with the other trans woman who is saying, "Oh, which bathroom am I least likely to get the shit kicked out of me?" That makes perfect sense to me. But I'm sorry. Every other woman doesn't need to pay the price for your comfort. That's not fair. That's not how we do things. That's just not how we do things. Hey, we got Tyler Smith in the building. What is good? What is good? Says a woman's greatest strength is giving birth, making food, and according to Tyler Smith, doing dishes and laundry. Wah, wah. Good one. Exactly. Let's back this up a sec, see what she was saying.
Is delusion. If we're looking at, to some extent, all gender is delusion. If we're looking.
Is it though? All gender is delusion? There's no truth but anything, man. Anything can be anything, man. All gender is good. No, it's not. There's two that are there are two that are tied to biology, and then upwards of 100 that are made the fuck up. And yes, delusion. So I guess by that standard, technically, she is right, because 99% of all the genders are delusional. It's only male and female, or excuse me, man and woman, that are not delusional. So I take that back. I agree, Roxanne.
At historically anywhere from, midwives after the enclosure of the commons in the 1400s, having their whole trade affected, or Brewsters having their trade affected, and now we don't think of women as, Brewsters, or that creating beer is a womanly thing. these all came from social conditions. These all came, a lot of gender, regardless of biological sex. It didn't like naturally flow out of our genitals. And like, it was like, you know, we're like, this is how.
What is your point?
My genitals are, so this is like how my gender is going to be. That didn't happen. That's not life. Like a lot of people who are either transgender or who are LGBT in general, all my friends were girls. At first,
all my friends were girls. Sounds like a social thing that's spreading. Okay, all right, let's listen.
I just remember there were a lot of things where like I would kind of like come up against people telling me that that's wrong, like that whether it's something I like, something I want to do. It wasn't until kindergarten that like someone told me that I'm a boy, and I was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable.
It wasn't until kindergarten that somebody told you that you were a boy? So does that mean you were... how are you going to end this? There needs to be another sentence there. So before you were living as a girl? Or now you're identifying as... I have no... Does anybody know what the hell the message that she just relayed to us? I have no idea.
Going to any bathroom in this world, like in the current society we live in, and to make trans women...
I don't feel comfortable going into any bathroom. So then what is the big deal if you don't feel comfortable no matter what, and all of everybody else is uncomfortable with one situation, and you're equally uncomfortable in both, then why should all of these people have to cater to your desire when it doesn't even make you feel any better? Make it make sense. Spring says, no, it came from basic needs of the community. I'm trying to see if I don't remember what it came from. Basic needs of the community. Men had to go out and try not to be killed or sent off to war, or, you know, all those other things that plague the 14th century. What did? I don't know what you're referring to. What came from? Ryan said the thing they're trying to destroy is a sense of order. The very order that even allows their discussion to occur in the first place. Islamic overlords when? Sooner than we think. If it goes like this.
The whipping girls of that.
I wanted to back this up because I heard this comment.
Like in the current society we live in, and to make trans women the whipping girls of that.
To make trans girls the whipping girls of the changes of society. Cope harder. Cope harder. Are we to expect and accept that simply being trans automatically and necessarily makes your life worse than everybody else? I'm not saying it doesn't in a lot of situations. I'm not saying having gender dysphoria is probably a horrible thing to deal with. But why is it that the trans community gets this free pass on doing crazy shit just because, oh, their situation, their experience, their this, and like, I don't get it. The whipping girls. Listen to it one more time. Let me go back to where she was actually saying. The whipping girls are so entitled, victimized.
I want to do. It wasn't until kindergarten that like someone told me that I'm a boy, and I was like, oh.
See, that's
I don't feel comfortable going to any bathroom in this world, like in the current society we live in, and to make trans women the whipping girls of that. I think that's disingenuous, but I do think.
So she, again, as I explained, she doesn't feel comfortable in any bathroom. So if she goes into the men's bathroom, she's not comfortable. If she goes into the women's bathroom, she's not comfortable. So what is changing the way that restrooms have worked forever? How is that helping you? Genuine question. Because we know how it's hurting women. And so the question just comes down to, okay, well, we have to weigh the harm that it causes women in general versus the benefit that you get from using whichever bathroom that you want. And if you don't feel comfortable either way, then you don't really have a leg to stand on.
think that we need a systemic change to make ourselves safer. I don't really know anyone who doesn't feel a little bit uncomfortable going to the bathroom.
Okay, we need a systemic change. I'm listening. What would that systemic change be? Because that doesn't really mean anything. So, okay, we need systemic change. Just saying things. Frank says the woman talking mentioned women's roles in the 14th century being forced on them. That's what you're referring to with. Oh, so yeah, so that came from basic needs of community. Okay, yeah, completely agreed, sir. Yeah, what about attack helicopters? These whamming are bigots against the vertical rise aircraft. How dare they? Oh wait, that's not my. I thought. Oh, there we go.
And trans people are not a delusion. Let's make it very clear.
And there we go. Right off the rip. Nobody said you don't exist as a human being. But trans people are not a delusion. Let's just make that clear, because I know you guys are about to be bigoted to me, but I just want to put it out there that trans people are not a delusion, okay? There actually is a human here. Yes, honey, we know that. But either you got a dick or you had one and you cut it off.
We're here. We've been here for ages. We've been here since the beginning of time. We're in your history books.
Correct. Anybody arguing that? Didn't think so.
And I think it's very disingenuous to say that a whole identity is a delusion.
Talk about straw man. That is the quintessential example of a straw man argument. Nobody said anything about people being delusional in the sense of not existing. Like, if somebody is delusional, that means they're experiencing delusions. That doesn't mean they themselves are the delusion. Is that what trans people think? That when those of us who don't subscribe to their ideology, when they say you're delusional, do they think that we're saying you are a delusion? Because that would clear up a lot. That would clear up a lot. Trans people, we are not saying you are the delusion. We are saying you have a delusion. A delusion is a thought or perception that doesn't really exist. There you go. Brick road worthy. That is not what anybody is saying. At least not anybody that's seriously in this conversation.
I believe that you feel like women. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is an objective truth, and I don't believe in his truth, her truth, their truth, my truth. Like, there is truth, and
Who defined that truth?
And like, it's already defined, and
that's what makes it the truth. It doesn't need to be defined by anybody. That's what makes it the truth. It's objective. If it was somebody defining something, it wouldn't be the truth. It would be an opinion. It would be subjective.
As a Christian, I believe God is the one who set truth.
No,
But who defined it?
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Ah! Every single time. Every single time. Why did you need to bring in God? Because the fact is, objective truth is objective truth. You are right. You are there. Now that you've started talking about God, now you've given this Black Trans Lives Matter here ammo to argue against. When whether or not God exists has nothing to do with this conversation. It was at this moment that she...
Her truth, their truth, my truth. Like, there's truth, and...
Who defined that truth?
And like, it's already defined, and as a Christian, I believe God is the one who set truth.
But who defined that?
Is the truth.
Can you tell me who defined that?
God.
Living in the Bible Belt with religion taking center stage, it's hard for a lot of trans and non-binary folks like myself to really be able to express who they are. I had to really take on my gender dysphoria in private. I couldn't talk to my mom about it. I couldn't talk to my dad, my siblings, because ultimately,
Told ya!
I felt like it wasn't going to lead to anything because there wasn't a lot of education in the cis community like there is in the trans and non-binary community.
So all along, we've all been on the same page as or against everything, basically everything that Blossom here is saying. Now you open the door to bringing religion into politics. Amala, you did that. Or no, it was the other girl. Right? Yeah, it was the other girl. But you did that. So I'm not telling you guys. I'm not telling you guys don't have your beliefs. I'm saying trying to use your personal beliefs, you know, kind of like the fact that you can change from a man into a woman, to have an argument about objective truth is not a winning battle.
We're talking about a book that was written by man with his own bias.
Who created chromosomes?
Yeah.
She's right.
I'm personally not religious and I believe in science.
When we talk about chromosomes, it goes back to the conversation we were talking about earlier about being intersex.
So we're not talking about intersex. We're talking about people who were born as a male and they tried to transition. The whole fact that they're trying to transition into a female in the first place shows that they aren't actually that or else.
Exactly. I think she's about to get to this, but this is something that from the very beginning, when even gay marriage was on the, you know, was still like, ooh. So I guess, what was that, like 2013? And that's when I guess I first really, I mean, you know, when I first encountered transgenderism in the world. And I just didn't understand it because I thought we were like, okay, you know, with this whole marriage equality thing, we're saying that if you're a person and you love somebody, then that's okay. We don't have to make any other qualifiers, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're this, whether you're that. Obviously, as long as it's an adult. But if the going back to the idea of trans women being men who are just playing dress up and doing caricatures of women, what exactly is it about a blouse that you need to wear that is so inherent to womanhood? Are you saying that women who don't wear blouses and don't have long hair and don't wear makeup are not women? Of course you're not saying that. Why can't you just be a very effeminate man who also happens to, you know, whatever? Why does it have to be this stark change? And if gender is so fluid, then what's the big deal about being a man or a woman? Just be you. The whole point of the trans movement is that gender is a construct. So why are you getting so hung up on that construct? Just ignore it. Just ignore it. Just be you. I think she's about to get to that exact point.
There would be no need to transition, right? So you say, okay, I feel like a woman. First place.
A little bit.
Talking about people who were born as a male and they tried to transition. The whole fact that they're trying to transition into a female in the first place shows that they aren't actually that or else there would be no need to transition, right? So you say, okay, I feel like a woman. What is that? What does that feel like?
Yeah,
how do you know?
I'm not saying I feel like a woman. I am a woman.
So then why did you transition? Why can't you just present as a man but be a woman?
I transitioned.
Exactly. I am a woman. So what was the transition then? So you're not trans then? Make it make sense.
So I could be who I was. I did not feel like I was the person that I identified with when I was born. So I took the steps to align my outside body with how I feel on the inside. What makes you stand up every day and make you identify as a woman? Let me challenge you on that.
I am a woman, and I don't like being called a cis woman because I'm not a cis woman. I'm a woman. I'm not a birthing person. I'm a mother.
So get mad at the.
Yep, I refuse to not use it, but I refuse to call myself a cis male or a cisgendered individual. No. I don't identify that way. And if you misgender me by calling me cis when I am a man, then, you know, I expect the same energy as if you're trans and I misgender you. I am not cis anything. I am a man.
The terminology, not at trans.
It's your new terminology.
But this is what I notice a lot of cis women do. The terminology has been around for so long. Cis is a prefix. Cis means same. Instead of getting mad at trans and non-binary people for using updated terminology, get mad at Webster. You're not going along with the time.
But we're not going by Webster when you want to be called Zer and Zim. You get to make that up. You get to call yourself Wolf Self. But that's not a, oh, excuse me, it's not a gender? Well, I've decided that I don't feel like a cis man. I feel like a man.
And being educated on the different pronouns and the different identities. You have to admit, some of the pronouns are kind of ridiculous. I mean, to be, with all due respect, I mean, I'm sure you have to agree some of the pronouns.
I don't think they're ridiculous. I think they're very expansive. Trans and non-binary people just want you to respect their chosen pronoun. We are not trying to force pronouns on you.
That is the same thing. Asking me to respect your pronouns is the same thing as forcing pronouns on you. That's the same thing. We're not trying to force you to use our pronouns. We're just trying to ensure that you use the right terminology. What? Hey, we got I am in the building. What is good? What is good? Says a real woman has a hoo-ha. Case closed. I couldn't care less what she says. Welcome, welcome. Glad to see you. I am that I am. Yeah, who's dead naming now? Who's dead naming now?
Just understand that the terminology is going to continue to grow. If you're willing to educate yourself and understand, then you've got it.
Oh, I understand. I understand that I am allowed to choose whichever gender identity that fits me best. And I don't care what you believe is your truth about the prefix cis. That feels othering to me, and I don't feel comfortable in my skin being called a cis man. I am a man. Period. Because I don't have one.
The ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength.
None of them. Interesting. 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 None of them come forward. This is the only thing that a woman can do that a man can't do. It is the only thing that promulgates our entire species. But even the conservative women, are like, well, I mean, yeah, we can make life and everything, but I got a PhD. Even the conservative women. It's sad. It's sad. Let's see what their explanation is.
Forward?
I'm not able to have children. So I'm still strong. I'm funny. I'm physically strong. I'm smart, and I have a lot of strength. I don't believe that having a baby is the greatest strength, because not all.
Okay, so the question was not, so the prompt was, the ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength. Not, is a woman defined by being able to give birth. I guarantee you, if this woman were able to have kids and wanted to, then she wouldn't have taken the question that way, because she's taken it too personally. Well, I can't have children, so, I don't want that to make me less of a woman. It doesn't. It doesn't. As long as you've got a uterus, it doesn't have to work. You just have to have the pieces. And even if you had a hysterectomy, and again, we're getting further away from the actual point. The same idea as saying humans have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 1 nose. That is factually correct, despite the fact that some people have had their eyes plucked out, that some people have gotten their arms chopped off, that some people have gotten a leg blown off. So the question was not, is giving birth what defines a woman? It sounds like she's extremely upset at the fact that she can't give birth. And that really does get to how she feels about her womanhood. Why is that? I'm funny. I have a great job. Okay. Ring says, it's weird that they are pushing for a belief that will die out if they do not recruit new members. Yeah, I don't think they do. I don't think they do. That's Tim Pool talks about that all the time. He's like, all right, whatever. You guys sterilize yourself and your kids and don't have any more, and then eventually we'll just have a conservative America again. It's only going to take a generation and a half.
All of us can. I cannot have kids due to medical issues from a medical procedure that I had when I was younger. And it's a hard subject to talk about. It doesn't mean I'm any less of a woman.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that you are any less of a woman. So why are you getting, I mean, I understand why, you're emotional at the sentiment, but that shouldn't prevent you from being able to answer the prompt as it was asked. Is it the greatest strength? Would that be your greatest strength if you could do it? That's like saying, is a man's greatest strength that he can fly? If all men could fly and then one person couldn't fly, he's like, no. But but if you could fly, you would say that would be your greatest strength. Well, Court, what are you saying?
But can we get another question? I'm sorry. It's
Why even put that in there? Just the virtue signal points. Like, yeah, next question, please. Just leave it out. You can cut that part out.
One of the things that I regret was the fact that I would never be able to do that, but I was honored in the ability to participate it from the other side. Women are amazing. They don't just deal with that.
While giving birth is not a woman's greatest strength, I do think that only biological
What is that?
women are capable of going through that process and bringing life into the world.
I need to push back on that because we're
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Come on, man.
also forgetting that trans men and trans masculine people can also give birth as well. And I don't think it's fair to just set it on one group that says that just biological women have that power to just give birth. And we have to be very clear when we look at the nuances of birth.
I recognize that there are people who have different identities. There are biological women who identify as men and then go on to give birth. I would argue, however, that those people are still biological women. And I know that is something that can offend many, but that stands as my belief.
So the correct term is actually cisgendered woman. Cis means same. It means that you are.
Is it though? Because remember, I am not a cis man. I am a man. Period. One who doesn't get a period.
Identify with the birth that you were assigned. And so, I just really, really wish that we would kind of be a little bit more mutable to the terminology, because I think that's what really is going to open up that dialogue and that discussion.
Oh my God. Yo. Frankie, you going to help in this one. But you're right. So basically, let me sum this up. It's cosplay for people who don't have a fandom. Yup.
If I may, I think the crux of the conversation kind of comes back to, are trans women? And I think if we don't agree there, it's going to be very difficult to kind of keep the conversation going or even agree on the points that you guys are talking about, because if we don't believe that trans women are women, then the conversation kind of ends there in terms of whether they're like men can give birth or not, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but she's not going to be able to take it because she thinks that automatically by having the opinion that you do, that you are a bad person, instead of seeing that maybe there's a different perspective that I don't agree with, but that is still valid. Frankie says, I'm good with hell. Pagan hell kicks ass. I am with that. I am is going off about these chromosomes. I'm not mad at it. I am not mad at it.
I'm not sure that's the case. I feel like the ability to give birth is not like the end all be all of a woman's like meaning in life. And
that was not what the prompt was. The prompt was your greatest strength. So again, even to Amala, if giving birth is not a woman's greatest strength, then what is? And we're not saying what is your greatest strength as a person, and you happen to be a woman. We're talking about women. And so that is, I think, even that little change, because it says the ability to give birth is a woman's greatest strength. So I think if they had changed that to women's greatest strength, it would be easier to generalize that. But they're completely missing the point. The end all be all of a woman's like meaning in life.
And herself and her personality. And I think that if you can acknowledge that, I would also then...
Guys, if you could do me a huge favor and just bop that like button, that would hugely, hugely, hugely help you. Thank you so much.
Maybe challenge the idea that womanhood, as opposed to like a female sex, like womanhood is a consistent thing that has always been one way.
So how would you define womanhood?
You sound like Matt Walsh.
It's a good question. Womanhood
It is a good question.
to me is about standing in integrity. It is about being confident in who you are. And me as a Black trans woman should not be a threat to you. And what I see from a lot of cis—
Why? Why should you not be a threat? You are embodying, not only embodying, much like the other older trans women there, not only are you embodying something that spreads things that we do believe is indoctrinating children, but unlike her, you are an activist. You are out here very ignorantly saying things that are not kosher with a lot of people. Hey, we got indie film in the building. What is good, brother? That indulging someone in their delusion does not help them. Exactly.
Transgender women is.
Welcome,
They're
brother.
trying to deem what womanhood is supposed to look like. I have my own perspective of womanhood.
How do you have that perspective? By what means did you acquire that perspective? Sounds like somebody doing blackface. Well, this is my true self. And as they get into, actually, transracialism makes a lot more sense than transgenderism.
We can coexist in the same world, but the reality is we get so stuck on parts. Having a vagina is not the only thing that makes you a woman.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
sorry. It takes integrity, it takes courage, it takes lifting other women up. It takes those things.
Oh, so I have courage, I have integrity, I'm lifting women up right now by fighting against their vulnerable spaces being invaded. Oh, shit. I think I just realized I'm a woman. I'm a woman, guys. Or maybe it doesn't work like that.
To begin to defy womanhood, and there's so many other different things.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, so if I were a white person and I said blackness is about integrity.
Yeah, so this is where they're about to go into it. I knew they were talking about it. This is where they're bringing up transracialism. And I'm going to put a poll up. I want to hear what you guys think. But do you think that transracialism is more rational, not rational, comparatively more rational than transgenderism?
Integrity and courage and kind of the same thing that you used to define womanhood. And then I said, I want to transition into a Black person and I'm white. And I'm redefining what blackness is to fit what I view it as, right? There's no objective reality of what blackness is. Would you consider that appropriation, or do you think that's something I should be allowed to do?
I consider that dodging, and I consider that comparing apples to oranges, because race and gender identity are two separate different things.
Exactly, but it's not different in the way that's going to help you.
Because when we look at race, we have to look at many, many different structures of what whiteness and white supremacy looks like and how white supremacy can be
Why do we have to look at white supremacy to determine what race is?
manipulated into other things. And what happens is the closer you are in proximity to whiteness, you're able to weaponize it against other people. It reminds me a lot of Rachel Dolezal, who, masqueraded as a Black woman. It really did.
How dare she?
How dare you?
You pretended to be something that you were born differently? Why would anybody do that? That's such a horrible thing to do, according to Blossom here. Yep.
Open up many more doors of conversations around it, but it's still wrong. It's still not fair, because she will still ultimately have a privilege that I, as a Black trans woman, would not begin to have.
Much like how, according to your ideology, there's plenty of privileges as however long you spent living your life as a man that you gained. And so now trying to take on the woman's experience, you're appropriating that. Oops.
What's interesting is that we're talking about race and gender,
Go
or
off,
as we
Amala.
probably like to call it on our side, sex. Race actually has a more understandable structure for people being transracial. Race does actually exist on a spectrum. I'm biracial. Many perceive me to be Black, even though I am also half white and half Black. We label people like President Obama as a Black president, even though he is as well. Race has never had binary markers. It does exist on a spectrum. Gender, however, does have binary markers. As much as we try, as much as we change the way that we self-present, chromosomes are not going to change, and that's just a reality.
Boom! Boom! Amala doing the issue right. Very well. So Frankie says transracialism has a historical context, at least. Race was never tied to skin color until recently. No, I didn't know that. In fact, most cultures do not use our definition of skin color as race. And we got the cosign for man and M. Very, very interesting. White and black are not races. They are skin tones. Yes, sir, they are.
All right, I'm going to bring up a little point here because you talked about the binary side of
there we go. I didn't get her name, but she's my favorite one other than Amala so far.
Of gender.
Well, she's my favorite trans one on the panel there.
Well, I was born a little both. I believe I never had my diploma.
Oh, we have one of the 1%ers. We have a 1%er, an actual intersex person. Well, let's see. But that's what she's saying.
I was check, but since I fathered 2 children, I'm assuming I have the correct male chromosomes. So I was intersexed, and there's a lot of reasons that happens, none of which are well studied or understood. But a friend of mine in the pediatric trauma world says about 1 in 150 kids come out with some degree of ambiguity in their gender. For me, that
right, the number is 1 in 150 with ambiguity. Ambiguity doesn't mean dead center can't tell. Ambiguity means, well, this basically looks like a penis, but there's, something else here. I don't fucking know the exact sign. Or this looks like a vagina, but these are clearly gonads, or whatever the case is. And 99% of the time, it leans in one direction. So 1% of the 1% are completely just flip of a coin. Everyone else just has a little bit of extra or a little bit less than they're supposed to have.
That appeared as always feeling out of place.
Is that her name?
And for the first week of my life, I was in the surgical wards at Naval Hospital in San Diego, getting pieces of me cut off. So, and then they gave me testosterone for the first 11 years of my life.
I just got your DM.
I
love it though.
I wish the world were truly sexually binary. It would make it so much easier. But there is a little bit of a smear. And, as a trans person, I'm a very conservative trans person. I don't see the huge gender spectrum that a lot of people in the trans community do. Do I feel better having transitioned?
I like her.
Yes, absolutely. I used to live in a little shell, very large shell, but now I'm much more open about who I am. Is that the only thing that generally defines a woman? No, I don't think that is the only thing that generally defines a woman.
Right. I think there are a lot of women who maybe on our side of the argument who will try to maybe invalidate your experiences by saying you can't give birth or you can't have a period. And while those things,
and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. I don't know if I am that I am. I don't know if you're telling me her name is Gina, but if let's just call her Gina for now. Like I said, I feel for her. I was gonna say I feel bad for her, but I don't even want to put it that way. I feel for her. She's caught in the crosshairs or the crossfire of this cultural battle where she is involved because of who she is. But and I mean I could be wrong, but she doesn't seem like thank you. Doesn't seem like the one who's out there on the front lines picketing this person and calling that transphobe and hating on Dave Chappelle. And it seems like this is just a person who's just trying to fucking live their life. And, I am that I am. Of course, I agree with you. Real women have periods, but I don't think she's trying to convince anybody that she's a real woman. I think she's just like, hey, I'm more comfortable like this. And I like to go by, according to you, Gina, and I like to identify as a woman. And, if you don't mind, then I would like to be addressed that way. And if you do mind, then we don't have to be friends. Kind of like how my name is the IndianJesus. If you can understand that is meant to be slightly controversial as to weed out those who are not capable of having difficult conversations. If you can accept that I am taking the name of your Lord in vain, and you can get past that and listen to the words that I have to say, then you will be rewarded with good content. And if you can't, then that's perfectly fine. There's a billion, gajillion other channels to watch. You prefer? No. I thought you said and. Yeah, I definitely prefer Gina to Blossom. She's my favorite on that side. for sure.
Things may be true. I'm sure there's a lot of other different struggles that you all are going through. And yeah, I would truly believe that you probably are highly discriminated against in our society, and it is hard to be you. It is hard to go through the things that you go through and have to deal with some of the...
I mean, it's hard to be you, girl. It's hard to be me. It's hard to be a fucking person. What are we talking about?
Responses that you get from people, and you know, it's not a struggle that I would wish on myself at all.
It's not a struggle I wish on my worst enemy.
Trans women should be allowed to compete in women's
Ooh, hold on. Before I actually, I should have looked ahead. Okay. Wait. Oh, I had this one. Oh, wow. We got 100% on transracialism. Okay, so let's see. I think this is the last one we got. Or one more. Trans women should be allowed. Come on. Allowed. I can type. To compete in women's sports. All right. The poll is up.
I do think that trans women have every right to compete in women's sports. When trans women are on hormones, the hormones break their body down.
Do they though? Maybe, but to the point where it's not creating a significant advantage. Okay. Yeah, I am. Aaron says men should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. That's simple. As Tim Pool says, we didn't make men's and women's sports because guys like to wear dresses sometimes. We didn't separate men and women's bathrooms and men and women's sports on the basis of men and women because men like to wear dresses sometimes. It's a colloquialism that only very recently they haven't meant the same thing. Frankie says, I'm currently waiting for the Pacific Island cultures to start opening enrollment, and I'm going there to join their race. Well, I mean, you know, if you can get past that, then they should accept you. But according to their ideology, that's all kosher. And yeah, exactly. I mean, you're 100% right. 100% right.
Having gender affirming surgery breaks down the body. And so I think we really need to be educated before we jump to a conclusion that trans women are stronger than cis women in sports.
Do I even have to say anything? Like, I think we can just let this one play out.
Hi, everybody.
I find it interesting that you assume the people who disagree with you are uneducated.
Whoa, we're getting spicy. Get her, Amala, get her.
And I will speak out against that. I think the research shows that trans women do happen to have a biological advantage against biological women. Even though you are taking hormones and that does start to change your body and level things out, we're talking about primarily people who have transitioned post-puberty, which means they do have male bone density, male wingspan, male hand size, feet size, lung capacity. All of these things are going against women, biological women, when trans women start to enter their spaces, their sports, and compete against them. And this is really concerning for me.
I think for me, it's not a question of whether or not trans women can compete in sports. It's a question of how can we change the institution of sports.
We don't want to change the institution of sport. Nobody except you to just get in, not to make it better, not for any other reason. You just want special treatment. Well, if we could just change the the institution of sports in such a way that somebody who is short like me could be in the NBA, then, you know, that's what would be fair for the world. I would be laughed out of any room I tried to make that argument. But because you're trans, you get special treatment.
In this country to make it equitable and to create more opportunity.
That is literally the opposite of what sports are for. Sports are not for creating equitable circumstances. Sports are specifically for competing and creating unequal circumstances and having a winner and a loser. So to change sports and let me just ask this. How many trans people are in sports in general over the entire world? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Hey, we got Safe and Gentle Tattoo Removal in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Definitely everybody you know has a terrible tattoo, and you can get rid of it. Go to safeandgentletattooremoval.com if you are in the New Jersey area, and we can help you out with that. Welcome. But yeah, that's the antithesis of what sports are for. Let's listen to that again.
If we can of whether or not trans women can compete in sports, it's a question of how can we change the institution of sports. And
that's even an admission in and of itself, that you do want to change this institution that has gone back centuries, and that people all over the world appreciate this institution, but you want to change it because you're not involved. Like I said, I want to change the institution of the NBA because I'm too short, and that's not fair. That's not equitable.
This country to make it equitable and to create more opportunity for cis women, for trans women. And like that's kind of like why I wanted to actually ask you all, like, what has your relationship to sports been?
I don't think you have to have a direct relationship to sports to realize that women are being affected by this issue. And I do reject the idea of equity. There is no way to come about an equality of outcome, which is what equity is saying.
Specifically in sports. How often have I been talking about, sorry, Dad, the boomers destroyed my generation, destroyed millennials with this participation trophy type mentality. It has destroyed my generation's ability to understand the value of competition and understand the value of things like discipline, physical hard work. You know, equity.
There's a reason that women's sports are less funded and less watched than men's sports. It's because men seem to excel athletically, and they seem to press the bounds of athleticism way farther than women do.
Also, women care much less about sports. And who is the overwhelming, actually, I don't know if that's true. I was going to say who's the overwhelming majority of people who are trans, the biological males, the biological females. I think it is, in fact, though, the biological males. So maybe that's not a good point. But you know what I'm saying?
We now exist on a slippery slope. If it's female sports, is it then female locker rooms? Is it then female prisons, which we're now seeing becoming an issue here in California, where biological male inmates are being put in female facilities because they identify as women? We have to discuss as a society how much we give into the feelings of wanting everybody to be accepted and how much we are willing to do that at the expense of biological women.
I use myself as an example. This is about how big I was in
Gina's back.
In early high school. I used to be able to
That's a big bitch.
walk up to a V8 engine block, pick it up off the floor, and set it on a table. And if I was in powerlifting or weightlifting, that amount of, that advantage was just unbelievable.
Go off, Gina. Go off.
I've been on hormones for 15 years. Did it weaken me? Absolutely. Did my bone density really hasn't changed? My muscular hasn't changed. And this is not a binary question. There's a lot of nuances involved.
I just want to ask a question for what you.
So before Blossom wiles out, let's see what we got here. Any film says, in quotes, trans has always been a scientific fact, end quote. We need to change the definition of everything and how every institution works to fit my ideas of the world. Yikes. Frankie says, I watch a lot of women's sports. Foxy boxing, jello wrestling. There you go. Oh no! Indie film. Actually, that's pretty funny.
We're saying, can you throw out some statistics?
Oh, and here we go with the statistics argument. From somebody who has brought no statistics. From somebody who has brought points that have flown in the face of statistics. Well, actually, can you get a source for that? I don't know if that's actually, where are your sources? Where are your sources? Before you start questioning other sources, you need to present some sources. That should be a blanket rule in all of debate anywhere. This is a conversation of people sitting in a dark room. What sources are you expected to have? That doesn't mean that she doesn't know them. That doesn't mean she hasn't read them. That doesn't mean that she hasn't read whatever source you think is gonna follow your conclusion, and doesn't mean she doesn't know what's wrong with them. Where your source says. It's a cop-out. It's cope.
I don't think you need to have there's an abundance of research. There's even trans activists who agree with exactly what I'm saying. And your hormones can change, right? And even she just spoke to the fact that her bone density did not change in going on hormones and changing these things.
Yeah.
And we can see it in sports as we're watching them. Leah Thomas is a great example.
So if you can't throw out.
I paused it before she said these last three words. Because before I paused it, what I was going to say was when Blossom asks, where's your source? She's been like, that person right over there. Were you not listening, Blossom? Gina just gave us a story of precisely what we're talking about. And then we went over all of that. And now is she really going to say, so if you can't throw out one source? I hope she's not going to say that. Let's see. Let's give her the full chance.
These things, and we can see it in sports as we're watching.
Please, Blossom, please. Do not say if you can't even throw out one source.
And Leah Thomas is a great example.
So if you can't throw out the statistics, we're
All right.
not doing enough of the work. And let's all.
Okay, so then throw out the statistics. Since you've done the work and everybody else is uneducated, then if you're setting the precedent that if you can't throw out the statistics, then you're not doing enough of the work, then it must mean you either can throw out the statistics or you haven't done enough work either. In which case, we're just a bunch of people having a conversation. So shut the fuck up about sources.
Let's also be clear. There are some cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone as well. And so we really have to.
You mean women?
To unpack it from all different sides here.
No, not really, because that is the arbitrary absolutely. When it comes to hormones and height and strength and all of that stuff, it is arbitrary to say men and women. There's plenty of women who are taller, faster, stronger. I wish I remember the next line of that Kanye song, but there's a bunch of women who are physically more imposing than men. Humans have 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 mouth. That is what we are talking about. I'm not going to say that out loud, but I'm not going to disagree.
Can you produce statistics about the bone density of biological men and how it changes upon being on hormones and whether or not it levels out to biological women?
Let's go, Amala! Of course she won't. Of course she won't. She just said, what was the last thing Blossom said? If you can't throw out the statistics, you haven't done enough work. Okay, so I guess Blossom is going to school us all.
I actually cannot, because when I would think of those statistics, I would think it was BS, to be quite honest with you, because the reality of it is we could talk about statistics and the research all day long, but it's about.
Then why are you asking about them? Shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. Maybe she is a woman, because using that sign language, as good as any woman can. And Willem said, exactly. Quit misgendering men and women by putting assistant. Yeah, I made that stand before already. You missed that one. But I was like, yeah, fuck that. If this is how gender identity works, and you can be called Zer and Zim, and that's different than Zir and Zim, then I can decide that I don't feel like a cisgendered man. Maybe that makes me part of the trans community. Holy shit. Did I just figure something out? I just figured it out, guys. We can invade this movement. We can now all become part of the LGBT community by simply transitioning from cisgendered men to men. All right. We figured it out. Frank says she asked for the stats, but then said they can't be trusted. Yeah, because shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. This is why whenever somebody brings up, well, where's your statistics? Without having done so themselves, because if somebody brings statistics and they're like, okay, well, you're countering what I've said based on statistics. So now I need to see your statistics. That's perfectly fine. But when you're just talking shit, when you're just saying things, you're like, well, where's your statistics? If you can't throw out statistics, then you haven't done enough homework. But I can't throw out statistics because I have done homework, but I don't like it. Brings I would never join a club that would have somebody like me as a member. Bill said, born male, I don't identify as male. I am male. Exactly. So let's see. We can talk about the statistics all day long.
The reality of it is we could talk about statistics and the research all day long, but it's about
Cope.
experience. We're going to be looking more at the
No, it's not.
experience because, again, when we look at cisgender women who produce high levels of testosterone and who have been kicked out of sports and been disqualified from
justly
teams based on something that they biologically cannot control,
justly,
then what are we really talking about here?
Well, we're talking about, data and that is overwhelming. And we're talking about what is also we're capable of seeing with our human eyes. I think it's very clear that if you compare maybe you to the rest of us, there is going to be a strength difference. There's going to be a bone density difference.
But you're just saying that.
You don't know that. You don't know that as a, I'm going to guess, 5'3" petite woman, that I can see the outline of Blossom's biceps from here. Look at where, these are the same size chairs. These are the same size chairs, okay? So her legs go all the way to here, whereas Amala's barely reach. Look at his legs all the way out and then way back in. I wonder if that has anything to do with the shape of their hips, their bone density, all of the things that we've been talking about this entire time. But we don't know. We're just guessing.
You don't know until we physically do something, and just perceiving and assuming just because I look a certain way.
I'd be like, all right, let's fucking arm wrestle then. We don't know until we do something. Let's do something.
That's not fair. Me and her could look.
Oh, that's not fair.
Could look completely different or whatever, but she may be stronger than me.
I agree, but
she have much more agility and vitality than I do. We don't know that until you actually do it.
I'm saying it has been studied. It's been done.
It's been done. We've seen it
but it's an assumption.
Time again.
But we're only going.
It's not assumptions, bitch. Like, what are you doing? You were the one who brought up statistics, and now when faced with statistics, you're just like, no, that's bullshit. Anyone sounds calling BS. What female athletes were kicked out of competition because their body naturally produced a high level of testosterone? I do remember hearing about this. I couldn't tell you, and it wasn't recent. But from what I mean, if somebody wants to Google it and get a link I could pull up, I obviously can't do it right now. But just women being kicked out of sports. But I do remember hearing of that. I do remember. I can't think. I don't have a source, but I do remember it. And I think it was only like one or two things here, instances here or there. But the fact is that the reason they would do that is because the assumption is that they're not naturally producing a high level of testosterone, that they are taking an exogenous, is that the word? Like external. Dad, you're still here. You know what I'm talking about. The testosterone that's coming from outside of her body. So that was the assumption, I believe. Thank you, Frankie. Yeah. So, and I believe it was like I was saying, that they had elevated testosterone levels, and I don't even know. I mean, Frankie, do you have like a wiki or something we could pull up? Is it worth it? Let me know.
On assumption at this point, because again,
they're not assumptions; they're facts. The assumption is that you can change your biology.
It's not assumption when we see it. Maybe it's the news cycle that I watch, but I see it a lot. I see it quite often where they're showing trans women beating. I mean, by far.
And you don't see women dominating in the men's sports, right? You don't see trans men going into men's sport and just completely dominating and wiping the field with them. This is what happens when you, in my opinion, twist God's design. And when you go against God's design, you create these problems that you wouldn't have if you weren't going against what God intended.
I'm going to take your side a little bit on that. Let me say one more thing, and I'm supporting you on this one.
Again, the conversation about the fairness of the sport was enough. Why bring God into the conversation? Why? That's not helping.
I mean, there's a great deal of women that, and actually there was a lady in the last Olympics that they actually disqualify until she went on androgen blockers to knock her testosterone down to a female level. Like I said, this is not a
Well, there we go.
binary yes or no question. And the whole idea of messing with what, God puts up, God put me up, okay, if you want to take that, and I had to
say that's just a non sequitur. It's just a non sequitur. It's a waste of breath. And it's showing just as Blossom doesn't know that about people like Leah Thomas, that you don't know that other people view the world from a different lens than what does God say. You are not helping yourself. Frankie says, Cornelia Ender refused to take testing before the games. This is from the East German women's swim team in 1976, according to Frankie. So don't fact check me, fact check Frankie, but I trust him. Cornelia Ender refused to take testing before the games. She was taking men's steroids. You would have to Google it. I'm going off memory. Okay, so yeah, it makes perfect sense though that the assumption, whether or not it was them taking PEDs, taking external testosterone, that was the assumption that if your levels are this high, that must be what it is, so you don't get to compete. Not saying, well, we know that this is natural and that's just who you are, but it's too much. I'm pretty sure that was not the situation. Liar Thomas was ranked 462 in men's competition and set world records for the ladies. All right, so let's see if I can find
this conversation with a very religious man in San Diego, and he was like, "Oh, I don't quite know how to deal with that."
And God made you that way, but He didn't make a lot of the people
Did he though?
I understand.
But God also understands my transition. God, first of all, knew what I was going to be in my life. God already knew I was going to be trans when God put me here. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair when people dib and dab. Your relationship with God is personal.
Yes.
It's sacred. And I don't think it's fair when other people dib and dab in other people's relationship with God and they don't understand what they go through. God still blesses me as a trans woman.
So how did bringing God into the conversation help? God blesses me. I'm Blossom. Everybody thinks that they have the right idea of what God is, what religion is, what morality is, because they believe in a God. Those of us who are strong enough to understand that with or without a God, that everything that God has said has not been, according to the faith, has not been something that you would want to follow as somebody who's living in 2022. I always bring up stoning women for adultery, wearing different types of cloth at the same time, eating shellfish. All of these things are sins punishable by death. But you don't believe that. I mean, maybe you do if you're fucked up, but I'm going to assume and give you guys the benefit of the doubt that you don't believe that. So if a trans person can twist God's word and say, well, God made me like this, and you're saying, well, no, God's way is this, then now you're just arguing about what God said, which doesn't get us anywhere. Leave God out of politics.
God blesses you as a cisgender woman. God is embodied in me as a trans person. I don't think it's fair, again, when we judge people's personal relationship with God. Gender identity, sexual orientation, none of that matters to a God that loves all.
Yeah, because he doesn't exist. Just kidding. All right, so we've got the article here for Cornelia Ender. So Cornelia Ender, born. Let's see if we can get to the actual. Oh, okay. Not that. Jesus Christ, not that long. Born 1958, swimmer at the 1976 Summer Olympics, became the first woman swimmer to win 4 gold medals at a single Olympic Games, all in world record times. It was later proven that the East German team doctors had systematically administered steroids to their athletes, albeit without the athletes' knowledge. Ah, okay. As she had exhibited symptoms of steroid use in 1976, deep voice, underdeveloped body, strong suspicion was cast on the validity of Ender's accomplishments. Trained from a young age, won her first Olympic medal at 13, 1972, 3 silver medals, the following years. Ender said she did not know at the time, nor had she ever subsequently found out exactly what the drugs were. She said she was only told that the drugs would help her, quote, regenerate and recuperate, unquote. And therefore, although she was surprised by the muscle mass she added, she nonetheless attributed it to simply her rigorous training. When she became suspicious and refused to take chlorodehydramethyl-testosterone, there you go. You guys know how terrible I am at sight reading. So for me to get that, that's pretty dope. Chlorodehydramethyl-testosterone in 1977, she was banned from the team. So, Blossom, unsurprisingly, was a little bit off base. It's not that a woman with natural testosterone levels that were too high was not allowed to compete. It was that she was on drugs. So the next prompt is gender dysphoria is real. Let's see what you guys. Oh, we got this one. 100% no on should women compete.
Gender dysphoria is real.
I think it is obviously real because many people experience it, but like any kind of dysphoria, whether it's someone who thinks they're overweight or anything, I think it should be treated as not
We're too short.
reality. Like if I thought I was obese, I wouldn't want to go to an affirming therapist to tell me, yes, you are obese and you should, get skinnier.
So I had the opportunity of working on the DSM-4, I think it was.
Okay, so it's just talking about the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The DSM is the handbook used by the healthcare professionals in the United States and much of the world as the authoritative guide to the diagnosis of mental health disorders. And what I want you to pay attention to is what Gina here is saying about her involvement in how we talk about these words and what is specifically, or not specifically, officially the right terminology and how it got that way. Back this up a second.
And you should, get skinnier.
So listen closely to what this means.
I had the opportunity of working on the DSM-4, I think it was, when we actually declassified transgender dysphoria from a mental illness to a condition. I had been at that point in time.
So we're on the DSM-5. There might be other, like usually they'll have like a new one every so many years, and then they'll have the 4B, 4TB, whatever. But they're on 5. So there was a couple versions of the DSM-4. When I was in college, it was the DSM-4 TR. And 5-ish years ago, they came out with the DSM-5. So this person, who I would say has a conflict of interest when it comes to defining what is a mental disorder and what is a condition, kind of seems biased. Doesn't seem like people who it doesn't seem like you want people who suffer from schizophrenia to be the ones to define and determine what do we count as schizophrenia. It doesn't seem like violent boyfriends should be the ones to determine what we as a society determine is a violent boyfriend. Am I making sense here?
I'd been cross-dressing for 50 years. And, because that dysphoria was there and every single thing I did to try to drive it away didn't work. I spent millions of dollars trying to be the coolest dude in the world. I bought airplanes, I bought everything that I could to just show the world how masculine I was. It did.
Okay, and now that you've transitioned, That's what I'm hoping this is going.
Work. It didn't go away. And I did therapy. I purposely went to a therapist that was anti-gender affirming. And
there you go.
Literally, he said, you need to do this. You know, and because it was so deep seated. So 6 weeks.
And I believe that is real in some people. I believe that's real in some people. Whether it's something physiological in their brain that is wired differently, because clearly their biology, the rest of their biology is what it is. But whether it's something within the mind that's wired differently that makes them think they are the opposite gender, or if it's a psychological thing, you know, for oftentimes you'll see men who transition where, you know, had some type of childhood sexual trauma, and so they don't want to be the man. Like, there's stuff going on there. In both cases, those are real, legitimate mental illnesses, but in fact, they are mental illnesses.
Is Gina with my son, and at the end of that period of time, he
Gina said that?
asked two very fundamental questions. The most important one was, it's got to be truly exhausting for you to lead two lives. And I was kind of like, that kind of shook me to the core that my 22-year-old son saw that better than I did. So shortly thereafter, I announced to my family that I was going to transition. My wife and I separated because of it. The kids were not necessarily shocked, but, you know, understood and have supported me quite well. And my wife has actually become a very good, you know, very warm, supporting person for me.
Oh, I feel so bad for that wife. I mean, it's bad enough for the sons, but like, you know, but your wife, you marry a man, and as he said, he was, you know, spent millions of dollars with doing this, that, being the prototypical masculine man, and then you end up with this. Yikes. Yikes. Must have a heart of gold.
Gender dysphoria almost made me kill myself. And coming from Mississippi,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that even if you didn't have gender dysphoria, you might have ended up there. Kinda, you know? Guys, real quick, I also want to remind you we have the $100 contest for going on in the Discord server. The link is right below in the description. All you got to do is join. It is free. It is free. No ifs, ands, or buts, no catches. It is free. Go in there. You can read the rules of the contest. It's just about hanging out, getting involved, hanging out with people, camming up in the voice channels, stuff like that, playing some games that we play, and you get points. Whoever has the most points on New Year's Eve wins $100 and a free IndianJesus t-shirt. So hit that link and get you some money. So any film says anti-gender affirming therapist. Looks at 6 foot and 210, stone chinned, no gina. Oh, you are obviously a woman. You ain't wrong.
At the time, there wasn't a lot of access to gender affirming resources like hormones, if I wanted surgery, whatever the case may be. And a lot of us trans folks who don't have access like that, a lot of us have to do sex work to be able to afford some of these things as well.
What? Do you think that gender surgery is the only thing in the world that people feel they need but can't afford? The cope is so hard. Well, I couldn't afford these things. Therefore, I just sell my asshole. Like I said, something tells me that gender dysphoria or not, Blossom, you're not in a good spot. You're not in a good spot, honey.
Resources like hormones, if I wanted surgery, whatever the case may be. And a lot of us trans folks who don't have access like that,
get a job and make sure we save up and then no.
That a lot of us have to do sex work to be able to afford some of these things as well.
I'm amazed that their faces didn't drop at all. I'm almost convinced that what we're watching is not a shot from right after Blossom said this. This seems like a shot from earlier in the thing. Because how the fuck can you say that in front of a bunch of conservative women and not even get a facial reaction? Yeah. Frankie can't afford a rolls. I want a rolls, but hey, that's life. No, you just gotta get out there and sell your asshole. Oh, but well, no, not for a rolls. I thought you meant you wanted to roll off your dick. But if you wanted to, if you want to get rid of that, then you can sell your butthole. But for a car, oh, that's disgusting. How dare you?
How dare you?
Me coming up at the age of 20, and I knew I had a serious gender dysphoria.
So you're age 20. Why couldn't you get a job?
Did things to my body that I should have went to a hospital to do. That is something that's
Who told you to do that?
very, very hard for people to understand. A lot of us commit suicide because of gender dysphoria, and so it hits our community a lot harder.
I do think gender dysphoria is very...
She didn't even make a point. So I just want everybody to know, hey, I just want everybody to know that I tried to end myself. So that means that I win the argument.
Much real. I think the issue that's happened, especially in the space of science and research, is that we've looked at gender dysphoria and said the only source of care that we can go through is blind gender affirmation care. And a lot of the research shows that this is not the route to go into. And other countries that have decided to do
So the thing here says receipt of gender affirming interventions, specifically PBs. I don't know what that is. PBs or GAHs. Does anybody know what those mean? Interventions. I think those are the hormones. Receipts of gender affirming interventions were associated with 60% lower odds of moderate to severe depressive symptoms, and 73% lower odds of self-harm or self-ending thoughts during the first year of multidisciplinary gender care. During the first year. Who was here when we did What is a Woman? Who remembers Scott from What is a Woman? Yeah, Tyler, I think that's what those are. But if y'all remember Scott was a man, is a man, transitioned to a woman, had all of these infections and complications, all this stuff. Tried to detransition, now has a whole litany of issues. And the statistic that Scott gave us was that 7 to 10 years is the time frame. Kind of like a marriage. That most people, according to the numbers that they have now, and I'm just quoting him, but according to the numbers they have now, it is on average 7 to 10 years is the hot spot for feelings of self-deletion, self-harm, regret for transitioning, all that kind of stuff. So if this stuff has only been popular to the degree that it has in the last 5 to 7 years, we are due for an influx of terrible stories of detransitioners. Terminal cancer too. That is awful. But hey, at least he emptied all his bank accounts.
partisan research.
So actually, let's go. I don't remember what he was saying or she was saying. Let's go back. So yeah, it's lower in the first year because that's the honeymoon period.
Is very much real. I think the issue that's happened, especially in the space of science and research, is that we've looked at gender dysphoria and said the only source of care that we can go through is blind gender affirmation care. And a lot of the research shows that this is not the route to go into. And other countries that have decided to do nonpartisan research, Sweden, Finland, have decided that yes, gender affirmation care should be an option, but it really should be the last resort when it comes to treating people who appear at clinics with gender dysphoria. You know, a lot of conservatives will deny and say, well, gender affirmation care does not make them happier.
Okay, actually, before we do that, I want to make sure everybody is on the same page. You know, I like my context. So this is a clip from the Daily Wire documentary who we were just talking about. This is Scott Nugent.
I never fit.
Come on.
I was an alpha female, a sales executive that kind of just didn't
born
fit
as a woman. Okay, I didn't even know that.
in any box. when psychologists or somebody that I was in love with or whatever said that I was in the wrong body, I started to think, well,
I mean, relatively, pretty looking. I mean, not like a supermodel, but I mean, if we go back to this, I mean, this is when we're getting into the butch phase, but I mean, like, that's not an ugly woman at all.
psychologists or somebody that I was in love with or whatever said that I was in the wrong body, I started to think, well, maybe I am. I'm a biological woman.
And so if you missed that, he said, when it started getting put into my mind, remember we were talking about social contagion, it's not until you heard about it that you started thinking about it. So that, I connect that to, why do people have a problem with a private school dean bringing butt plugs into to teenagers for them to play with and talk about specifically the difference between inserting it in their bodies, get on camera there, inserting this in their bodies with spit versus lube. And we're just all supposed to be okay with that.
That medically transitioned to appear like a male through synthetic hormones and surgery. I will never be a man. Is it transphobic for me to tell the truth? Why is it that a couple hundred years from now, if you dug up my body, they're gonna go, yeah, that was a woman, had babies.
Can you tell me about the procedures that you had?
I've had 7 surgeries.
It's legit trigger warning for this. It is so sad, and it's not super grotesque, but it's...
I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months.
6 inches of hair growing inside your body. And I don't know if you have pubes, but they're not like the hairs on my arm. They're quite a bit thicker.
Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me because I lost my insurance. I get infections every 3 to 4 months. I'm probably not going to live very long.
And now Indie Film's telling us that he's also got cancer.
Was there any real discussion of the risks and the side effects? And
there had to have been, right? You can't do can't do a procedure like that without talking about the risks and the side effects.
No, there's not. And I know that people want to think that there is, but there's not. The truth is that medical transition is experimental. We have studies that said that medical transition helps mental health with kids. They've all been retracted, modified, changed.
I hope he brings up this.
But the only long-term study tells...
There we go. Okay, the only long-term study
tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal.
You hear it again? You hear it again? Come on. Fucking my flow here, bro.
Modified, changed. But the only long-term study tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal. After surgery.
So we don't have a lot of people who have been transitioned for 7 to 10 years compared to the number of people who have just transitioned, period. So like I said, within the next few years, what he's talking about is coming.
But that's transphobic to say.
Puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and
this was another doctor. This is a gender affirming doctor.
Don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty. Just like if you were listening to music, you put the pause on and we stop the blockers and puberty would go right back to where it was, the next note in the song.
It's like pausing a song and you get the next note in the song. This is a legitimate, real doctor who is really transitioning kids. If you watch that stream, you will remember that Matt Walsh asked, at what age can a child start to determine I was only 3 years old.
Just delay that period of time.
You can just pause puberty.
No, you can't.
And then pick it up.
No, you can't.
In the future.
No, you can't. How many studies do they have, long-term studies, on hormone blockers with children? None.
Come
For
on,
the
man.
first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. Every child that they convince is transgender and in need of medical transition, it generates $1.3 million to pharma. And we're believing a pharmaceutical company.
This is the same industry, mind you. This is the same industry, mind you, that wanted to inject you with all kinds of experimental shit that we now know doesn't do any of the things that it promised. You know, son, let's take the language back. She's a gender disaffirming butcher. I'm with you. I'll take it. Whatever we can do. Fighting the culture war. Whatever we got to do.
Lupron, hormone blockers, reversible, so they say.
Lupron.
Well, the truth is that in 2003, Lupron was sued and deemed a criminal enterprise by the U.S. government. They paid the most fine of any pharmaceutical company at that time, $874 million, wrote a check.
Is Lupron chemical castration?
Yes.
Go back to her, please. Yes.
We're giving it to pedophiles, aren't we? We're giving it to people that are dying, and we're giving it to kids, telling them that they were born in the wrong body and it's completely safe. We're telling children when they haven't fully developed that all you have to do is medically transition and you fit in. I was one of those kids. It got me at 42. Your child doesn't have a chance.
Said it got me at 42. And they want to introduce this stuff to toddlers. A couple minutes left in this. We'll finish up the other one.
What do you say to parents? A parent comes to you and says, my 8-year-old son is
Run.
a girl.
Yeah, great. You're going to have them do an experimental procedure that creates the most suicidal ideation of any other population 7 to 10 years after, transition. And here's what I tell parents.
That's something that I don't hear brought up enough. Because if you are just a cisgender, if you're just the identify with the gender according to your biology, even if you want to become non-binary, even if you want to change your gender, you are still in a different statistical group with everybody else compared to those who have some sort of gender-affirming care. So people who have no gender-affirming care, whether they think they're, regardless of what they think, regardless of what their opinion, regardless of their gender dysphoria, whatever it is, people who don't have gender-affirming care, average self-deletion rate is, wherever it is. I don't know, 10, 20, whatever it is. That is a fact. Aside from whatever the number is, I don't know the exact number, but whatever that number is, that is what the rate is among people who have zero gender-affirming care to change their gender. Even if your 8-year-old has self-deletion ideation, you are still putting them at higher risk by entering, statistically, by putting them into a group where the self-deletion rate is 40 to 60%. 40 to 60%. So if you have an 8-year-old who is saying these things in 2022, first of all, if you have an 8-year-old boy who says, I think I'm a girl, then let the fucking kid wear a dress and play with Barbies. What the fuck does a kid know about the desire to not have a penis and not be associated with the child? Doesn't know that. So then, okay, we get to high school. You're 13, you're 14. Mom, it's not a phase. I really want to do this. And this is where it gets back to the goth thing. transgenderism is the Gen Z version of being a goth kid. Except the worst we did was put little holes in our face. And sorry, Mom and Dad, but they're gone. I used to have half-inch gauges in my ears. And you could see, wait, you could see a little scar. See a little scar on my lip ring? You can see a little thing there. But guess what? That's all gone. You can just pause it like you're pausing a song and it'll pick up at the very next note. Will it though?
You don't have the right to medically transition your child.
Can kids consent? Do you think kids are capable of consenting to that?
No, they're not. Being a parent is loving the hell out of your kids and helping them see around corners. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States.
5.
Promoting that.
Let's see if we can move. We can't see too much, but you can. This whole thing is scarred on his entire forearm. You can see it kind of protruding here, so it looks like there was a piece of the arm taken out here, but all of this is scarred up.
What?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys.
I think he said it. I was gonna say I think it's $70,000 a pop, but they already said it. So.
$70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate. That will kill me from infection that I can't sue on. We're butchering a generation of children because nobody's willing to talk about anything.
Come on, man.
I have 3 kids. At the age that they're doing this to kids.
But yeah, this is just about being a bigot. This is just about hating people because we have nothing else to do, right? This is why the left thinks the right is evil and the right knows the left is ignorant. Let's finish this up and get back to our video.
I'm not transphobic. I love my kids, and I love other people's kids, and you should too.
I remember that.
This is wrong on so many levels.
Mm-hmm. How? I mean, just heartbreaking. Just fucking heartbreaking. Oh, so let's back this up a little bit and see where they were. Because this is what they're, exactly what they're talking about sparked that video. So let's back up a little bit.
Nonpartisan research.
All the way back to where they started talking about. I want to hear that word.
Is very much real. I think the issue that's happened, especially in the space of science and research, is that we've looked at gender dysphoria and said the only source of care that we can go through is blind gender affirmation care. And a lot of the research shows that this is not the route to go into. And other countries that have decided to do nonpartisan research, Sweden, Finland, have decided that, yes, gender affirmation care should be an option.
So gender affirmation care should be an option. This says, for adolescents with gender incongruence, the NBHW, the National Board of Health, it sounds down here. The Swedish National Board of Health and Welfare deems that the risks of puberty suppressing treatment with the GnRH analogs and gender affirming hormonal treatment currently outweigh the possible benefits, and that the treatments should be offered only in exceptional cases. Just in case you're wondering what they were doing in Sweden, because whenever I hear about the economy, all I hear is these Nordic countries like Sweden have it all figured out. So if they've got it all figured out, then tell me why they're wrong about this one.
But it really should be the last resort when it comes to treating people who appear at clinics with gender dysphoria. You know, a lot of conservatives will deny and say, well, gender affirmation care does not make them happier. And in many cases, that is true. But there are the cases like yourselves where the gender affirmation care does make them happier.
You know, I know a lot of people that have transitioned, have untransitioned. I talked with a gentleman at a religious right convention one day, and he was sitting there screaming how Jesus got him out of his gender transition. And honestly, that was
And I'm sure that Gina was like, "Oh, Jesus said it, so I guess I should not be a woman." There are no exceptional cases. I mean, I disagree with that. I do believe gender dysphoria is a real thing. For children, I don't think that those exceptional cases need to be played out. But somebody like Gina here, I have no problem with Gina wanting to live her life as Gina, as a woman, whatever. Especially if she is living a life where every single day she is obsessed. And yes, this is a psychological issue, not a physiological or biological one, but an issue nonetheless. If she's experiencing this every single day to the point where she legitimately wants to end herself, then I don't want that person to die. Those are exceptional cases. Absolutely they are. There's just not a lot of them. There's just not a lot of them. Like Indy, would you? So, I'm sorry, I forget. You have a daughter, correct? So, if your daughter wanted to transition, and for the sake of argument, you knew for sure, heaven forbid, but just hypothetically, you knew for sure that if they didn't transition, that they were going to end themselves. You wouldn't say that that's an exceptional case? You would rather your child end themselves than transition? Seems like we're going too far in the opposite direction on that one.
Saddest man I've ever talked to in my life. When I look,
I missed that. Sorry. Owie.
This right convention one day, and he was sitting there screaming how Jesus got him out of his gender transition. And honestly, that was the saddest man I've ever talked to in my life. When I looked at him straight in the
a guy screaming about Jesus, somebody who had been in the whole trans thing and now is out at a rally screaming about Jesus, I have to assume by himself. That does sound pretty sad. You're not going to find leftists doing shit like that. I mean, you guys, we have to contend with the fact that religiosity is a political cancer. It is a political cancer. You religious people need to focus on the values and not the beliefs, or you will continue to lose. It is what it is. Believe me or don't, but I'm right. And he says, indulging someone's delusion does not help them. No, I would not allow them to be butchered for the goal they can never attain. But then they're gonna end themselves. You would let your child end themselves because of your political ideology? Sounds kind of like what parents who are transitioning their children are doing, but
the eyes, and I said, here, I don't agree with what you say, but I 100% support your right to say that. And he just literally broke down crying in the section of the Supreme Court.
If I could interject really quickly.
So not only did we see that this man, who Gina could tell was the saddest man she'd ever seen, he was involved with the trans community, the trans movement. Now he's still involved with the trans movement on the complete opposite side, putting his faith in God and Jesus and this and that and the other. And one sentence from a 50-year-old trans person sent him in tears. I'm just saying, show me the difference in delusion that you can change your biology and the delusion that it is reasonable for us to accept the thing that you have faith in.
No, absolutely not.
I feel as though the medical profession is actually inching towards a space that is going to become unsafe for people who try to express their gender dysphoria, because now we have young children coming into clinics expressing this, who by and large, statistically, about 60 to 70% grow out of that dysphoria. But because it's become a political issue, where many activists have come in and say, no, you blindly affirm, you affirm to the furthest extent that you can, rather than going through a more comprehensive process with these children, we have what I think is a medical tragedy happening against young people in this country.
Go up, Amala! 100%. A medical tragedy happening against young people in this country. But in any film, you're mischaracterizing the situation. You can't grow out of something if you are dead. You cannot grow out of something if you are dead. So if the answer is that you're willing to put them in a mental institution to make sure that they don't harm themselves, that's a perfectly reasonable answer to me, because I do accept that they would be delusional. It seems that society has made it so that the specific version of delusions could be handled in a less dramatic way, and then allow them to grow out of it. But part of the situation is that they are dead. There's no wiggle room here. She's got a knife to her fucking throat and says, if I don't get what I want, I'm slicing my throat. I'm just asking. I don't know. I don't have kids. So I don't know where this is going to go. I was watching this, but I was also there was some drama in the Discord today. Actually, you know what? I just for my own edification, I want to ask you guys. So I'm going to give you a situation, and I'm just going to ask, is that cool? And I want you to answer yes or no. So the situation is that I'll get rid of all this. I'm sorry, but so a little situation, real quick. I'm having a house party. I invite all my friends over. We're all hanging out, having a good time. Then one of my best friends, someone who always is coming on my party, really appreciates the fact that I throw these parties. See how much I put into trying to throw parties for you guys. It's like, yo, everybody! Sorry, I forgot you guys. Some of you guys are on headphones, but yo, everybody! I'm having a party across the street. Anybody want to come? Would that be cool? Or would that not be cool? Just curious. So, yes, the new prompt here in the video is I have been sexually harassed. I'm trying to obscure that as much as I can.
Sexually harassed.
And of course, they just say it.
Yeah, I think
Believe
in our
all
society,
women.
it gets so sexualized, everyone and everything. And I think we owe a lot of that to pornography and just media. And I think the kind of acceptance that I do see more so in the LGBT.
Who wants to bet that not one of them is going to ask, well, what did we mean by harassment?
Community of like, you know, sex is great and let like everyone talk about it and there's no shame and everyone's just blurting out, you know, the fact that we're perpetuating a culture that's frankly, in my opinion, disgusting.
So are you talking specifically about LGBT people?
I'm talking more so just about this sexual revolution, that the more sexual you are, the more partners you have, the more open you are about your sex life and everything, the more like liberated you are. What is?
Of course, Blossom was like, wait, you're talking shit about me? No, bitch, chill the fuck out. Nobody cares about you. You're loud and annoying. You were a loud and annoying dude at one point. Now you're a loud and annoying bitch.
consent, like people are coming out of the woodwork saying, you know, I was violated, this happened to me, but they like drove home with that person, and I'm not blaming them, but I am saying those lines are being blurred because of our just flagrant disregard for any kind of like actual relationship prior to the sexual encounter. And I think a lot of people are being exploited left and right.
True sex positivity has been powerful. It has helped us to grow and learn about our bodies in so many ways and learn safe sex practices in so many ways. What I would blame for rape culture or for a lack of good boundaries or that kind of thing is we live in a capitalist system that has taken things like sex positivity and mangled it and repackaged it and made it a whole other thing than what it actually is.
Okay. Again, I'm listening. I'm here. So taking sex positivity has something to do with capitalism, repackaged it into what has it been repackaged into? Because there is a right answer. But something tells me she's not going to have the same answer that I have. Tim Film says, yes, hospitalization is better than transition. But I gave you that answer. You were ready to let your daughter die, you fucking monster. Hospitalization is better than transition. Actually, this hits closer than you know. Disconnect them from social media, change schools, or better yet, homeschool. The social contagion will dissipate. I agree with you. That is what the what I was getting to at when we're saying exceptional cases. And the fact is, you know, it doesn't always work out. And if you're saying it hits close to home, then maybe you know better than a lot of others. But you know, my first girlfriend, I told you guys, I was not my romantic compass was fucked up. And so my first girlfriend, great girl for the most part, but she had a pretty severe eating disorder. And her parents didn't have the resources to get her, you know, the type of help that she really needed. And, you know, as a 15-year-old boyfriend, a lot of that shit fell on my shoulders because of all the shit that her parents didn't know. But point being, she was hospitalized for a while. But and this is before social media. Well, no, this is like in MySpace days. And they were big piece. What's the word? They were big deals in their community. You know, their parents were in this organization. So just changing schools isn't necessarily something that A, they could afford, and B, that would be practical. So they had to hospitalize. And you know, now she, as far I don't keep up with her, but as far as I know, she's doing fine. She's got a husband and a kid, maybe 2 kids. I don't even know. But that's the point, is that she needed help immediately, and she was going to if something didn't happen. And so part of that had to be like, all right, we need to deal with this carefully. We don't know exactly what this is. So that's all I was getting at. Hopefully I didn't cut too deep. I didn't mean to you know, get too close to home. But you know, I think it's an important aspect of this conversation. Let's back this up a tiny bit.
Is we live in a capitalist system that has.
Oh yeah, I need to hear her whole thing again, because I don't know what the hell she said. I got this part. We were helped to learn us grow and learn about our bodies, which is arguably not a good thing in the way that we've learned.
Many ways, and learn safe sex practices in so many ways.
That part is good.
What I would blame for rape culture or for a lack of good boundaries or that kind of thing is.
So I refuse to admit that there's an RP culture, because an RP culture would suggest that it is the culture that we accept that activity, which of course we don't, by the basic notion that we have you know, laws against it, and that even prisoners see those types of crimes as worse. So that is the antithesis of an RP culture. But she's saying lack of good boundaries. Certainly there are a lot of people who have a lack of good boundaries. So let's see what she's got to say. She said the cause, let's go back one more time, because I really want to get this.
What I would blame for rape culture or for a lack of good boundaries or that kind of thing is...
So what she's blaming for the lack of good boundaries...
We live in a capitalist system.
...is capitalism. Okay, so capitalism is a system of free trade based on property rights and supply and demand, okay?
That has taken things like sex positivity and mangled it and repackaged it and made it a whole other thing than what it actually is.
Okay, I agree. So I agree. Capitalism has turned this idea of freeing yourself and owning your authentic self and has changed it. But does she know what the fuck she's talking about? Or is she just a broken clock that happens to be right?
I was sexually harassed for 5 years by...
That's it? That's all we get? So if she was saying, making me doing the heavy lifting, Jubilee. All right. So if she was saying that sexuality is now being sold as empowerment and that women are being, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I'm sorry about that, brother. Where was I? Oh, so yes, the idea of I'm just so confused about what she thinks is going on. But yeah, just selling it as that you go girl, you're a boss bitch, it's destroying the rest of culture. And I think that the lack of boundaries, maybe, yeah, okay, I can take that. I had to sit and listen to it 3 times because I didn't really know what the hell she was saying. But the commodification of sex has turned it into something different than what it was. And it's just a means of interaction. It's just a thing to be traded, and it's not something to be valued. I don't think that's what she was saying, but that's what it is.
A woman. That does happen because I'm pretty sure it's going to be with men, this and that. It's
wait a minute. I think we missed something important there.
Packaged it and made it a whole other thing than what it actually is.
I was sexually harassed for 5 years by a woman. That does happen because I'm pretty sure it's going to be with men, this and that. It's hard coming from a man, but to me, it was harder coming from a woman because it wasn't expected. Like, I understand you're going to probably touch on that about how men are more on the predatory side or the more harassing side sometimes. But I just want to let you know that it does happen with women as well.
All through my life, world's biggest kid in junior high school, I basically was harassed continuously for being gender nonconforming. Back then, everybody in junior high school took showers together. I basically had a permanent welt on my bottom from people snapping towels at me because, I wasn't as well endowed as I probably should be. I had, pretty good sized boy boobs and basically was just unhappy being in sports. But
so why don't you work out? I'm sure it's deeper than that. But think of all of the stereotypical answers that goes into a young middle school boy not being comfortable in his body in the gym showers. That is not a unique thing. That is part of being a middle school boy. That is part of growing up. But you've taken this universally ubiquitous experience and anchored a different feeling to it. And again, Gina seems like someone who has the most legitimate case of gender dysphoria that we need to. Oh my God. She seems like the most legitimate case of gender dysphoria that at least we have on the panel, and at least that we've heard from it in a while. But at the end of the day, it's still like, and she'll get a little bit more credit for me because back then she couldn't have known that how normal being gay would be. It really, it's sad. It's not that I don't have sympathy. It's just that no amount of sympathy in the world can change the truth into something else.
it happens everywhere. I have been sexually assaulted, and it didn't work out well for any of them. It's real. Let me just put it that way. It's absolutely real.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to find a person who hasn't been sexually harassed in some way, shape, or form, whether you are male or female. I think it's an experience that we all share because we are in somewhat of a hypersexualized society, and people love to make those comments public. I am a podcaster and I do social media for a living, so as you can imagine, the
Shout out to Amala and Unapologetic Live. Go check her out.
onslaught of sexual harassment is quite vast.
From a very young age, I've had this recurring nightmare of something happening to me, trying to warn people, and no one believes me.
That's so weird. I've never had a dream like that. Oh, wait a minute. I have had a dream like that. And people told me about dreams like that. And I've seen in movies people having dreams like that. But I guess that means you have to transition your gender. Man.
When you're not believed that you're a desirable person.
That's really the whole thing. I was kind of teasing her a little bit, assuming she was going to have more to it. But that's the whole thing. I used to have bad dreams. Therefore, transgender.
And I really don't think rape has anything to do with desire, but when you're not believed in that way, when trans women...
Rape doesn't have anything to do with desire. Maybe not always having to do with sexual desire, but neither here.
Are experiencing trans misogyny, we're the ones who are least believed when we are sexually assaulted. And it just feels so disempowering and so terrifying when you know that you are someone who is seen as hypersexual, as...
See what I mean? From the very start, from the first word out of Roxanne's mouth, I was like, this seems off. She doesn't seem like this is a good forum for her. She doesn't seem like she's good at, and I'm not trying to hate on her. I'm just saying this doesn't seem like, maybe if she could write a letter or something. But she's not adding anything to the conversation. She's just talking about herself. She's just telling things that happened to her. Like, okay, that's sad, but what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Like, I get the prompt is that I've been, sexually harassed, but I think the idea was to spark a conversation about how that is not something that is unique to biological women or anyone else. But I don't know. They didn't get there. Wherever they were trying to get, they did not get there. And anyone said, "Wait, is this person afraid of being R-paid? We should believe this, or is she cosplaying as a woman?" Whatever you guess, you're gonna be wrong. So just pick whatever entertains you the best.
Inherently sexual, as inherently predatory, and yet at the same time you're seen as someone who can be isolated and sexually assaulted and not believed.
I don't think there's anything inherently predatory about trans people. And I think oftentimes when we're talking from a conservative perspective, it gets misconstrued as viewing you as a threat. And I hope that never comes off. And I think that allegations of sexual assault, regardless of who they're coming from, should be taken seriously.
I think we agreed on something.
Found common ground.
So I don't know if this has gotten us really any further in the whole debate. I think the women in the video, seem to be expressing themselves honestly. But I think it just highlights how much of a disconnect, how big of a chasm there is in the people who understand this from their own unique perspective and from the objective political perspective. You see the people in the movement, not all LGBT people, but the activist types. You see them wanting to apply their own personal experience to the entire world. What did you eat? This dog's fucking puking. Just puke on the floor so I can wipe it up. Just don't puke on a blanket or something. I don't know where he is. Whatever. He licks the floor and he gets whatever. The fact is that we are not able to make everybody's life exactly what they want it to be. That's just not something that we can do. And so when you hear these people talk about how I had this and I had that, it's not that I'm not sympathetic. It's not that I think they deserve that. It's not anything like that. It's just like, okay, you got your shit, I got mine. Let's deal with it. You want to be trans? Fine, go for it. Just stop coming to me with it. Do I come to you with my issues? Trans people? I come to you guys who are watching here, but you guys choose to be here. And if you don't, you can just fucking leave. I hope you don't. I like when you are here. I actually very much appreciate when you guys are here. But nobody's forcing you to be here. And so the fact that you guys do stick around does mean a lot to me. And I do want to thank you guys very much for hanging out. I think just because I understand does not mean I care. That's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. They think, as Blossom said, if you don't agree with me, you must be uneducated. You must not understand. No, I understand. I just don't care. At least not to the extent that I'm willing to upend how society works. That's not something that I'm willing to do for much at all. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing. Believe nothing, except that anything is possible. But this ain't it. This ain't it. So I definitely want to hear from you guys on this one. So make sure you go down to the description. The party rages on. As always, there might already be people in there. They're in the Discord server. We are into the voice and video chat. That's where I will be as soon as the show ends. Head over there. It is free to join the Discord. It costs you $0. If you join now, there's a number I have in my head. And when we reach that number, I'm cutting off the Discord because we're going to be popping by then. And people are going to be wanting to get in that Discord. And all of you who are in the Discord, at that point, will have a lifetime membership. Everybody else is going to have to pay. So get in there while it's free. And we had a little bit of drama today. That was fun. And then we're always talking about good stuff. And of course, after every show, we have a nice, meaningful conversation about whatever we talked about, and sometimes other stuff too. So meet us over there. And again, I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. If you have not already done so, please, please, please hit the like button and the subscribe button while you are at it. Guys, I tell you every time, but I want to make sure that you know every single second that you spend here on this channel means the world to me. I would love if you guys could help support the channel monetarily. You guys know that I spent a whole chunk of money to try to upgrade this whole system, and there's still more shit to buy. So I need some help. But I really do need some help. But if you can't do that, that is perfectly fine too. It is absolutely free to tune in. It's absolutely free to hit the like button. And what would be even bigger than that is to take the URL of this video and plaster it all over social media. You know how bad the YouTube notifications are. So I need you guys to be the notifications for me. Hey, we got Landon in the building. What is good, Landon? Welcome, welcome, welcome. You have just, we're just closing down the show, but the party rages on in the IndianJesus Discord, and we have a $100 engagement contest going on right now. So if you want to click the link in the description, we're about to go over there and have a conversation where we don't have to worry about what YouTube is, whether YouTube's watching and all of that stuff. So again, thank you so much for hanging out, guys. You are amazing. I hope you enjoyed this party. Once again, I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.